Today we're going to talk about annotation. Annotation is one thing that many students can't stand doing. Their arguments are that it slows them down, it makes it so that they can't understand what they're reading, and students who make those comments aren't going about annotating in the correct manner. So I want to talk today about what annotation is not, and also how to annotate. So before we begin, let's take a look at what the top benchmarks are for annotation in order to get the highest possible score for annotation. So if you take a look at this, it says annotations frequently address character, setting, important plot points, figurative language, and thematic concerns. So we're not just focusing solely on character or solely on plot. Instead, it's identifying all of these things. Also, you need to include many annotations that concern personal opinions and reactions to the text. So this means if I come across a point of the book that I find humorous, I can simply put a smiley face or a ha-ha in the margin. If I think something is just, I can't believe that it's happened, I can write, what? Or I can do one of these things. I had a student a few years back who, she was a great drawer. She expressed herself through drawing. So she would write the annotations, but then she would also illustrate the scene on a Post-it note and stick it in the book. It was fantastic, and she had such a great visual comprehension of the story. Anyways, I digress. Let me come back. Annotations go beyond the text in an attempt to draw conclusions, inferences, and predictions about character motivation, symbolism, meaning of figurative language, and the author's theme or meaning. So I'm looking, are you drawing conclusions? Are you inferencing? Are you predicting? Those higher order thinking skills. Remember, we're not in 5th grade anymore. I don't want you to just tell me what the story's about. I want you to think about the story. Why is this happening? Why did the character act this way? What effect does this have? Also, although your annotations are not perfect, they show an effort to interact with the text thoughtfully and thoroughly. Thoroughly means that the entire text is annotated. You don't have an entire chapter left blank. So please keep that in mind when you are annotating. All right, now let's take a look at a piece that we are going to be reading as a class. And I want to get started here on the annotation. Okay, the first thing I need to do is take a look at the title, The Pedestrian. All right, and I have to ask myself, why this title? Now, you don't have to write that down in your annotations. Instead, what I would suggest you do is, after you've read the story, go back and explain the answer to why this title. Whenever you're given ancillary information, you have to read it. It's not given to you for no purpose. I'm going to let you read that on your own in class tomorrow. You don't need to read it right now. Okay, let's get down to the story. To enter out into that silence that was the city at 8 o'clock of a misty evening in November, to put your feet upon the buckling concrete walk, to step over grassy seams and make your way, hands in pockets, through the silences, that was what Mr. Menard Lead most dearly loved to do. Okay, I read this sentence and immediately I'm thinking dark. Okay, it's 8 o'clock at night, it's evening, and it's November. November is one of your darker months, so that's why I'm thinking dark. Okay, but also I notice here that the author uses the word silence twice in one sentence. So I want to write silent in the margin. Okay, and he loves to walk. All right. He would stand upon the corner of an intersection and peer down long moonlight avenues of sidewalk in 4 directions, deciding which way to go. But it really made no difference. He was alone in this world of 2033, or as good as alone, and with a final decision made, a path selected, he would stride off, sending patterns of frosty air before him like the smoke in a cigar. Okay, notice I've just kind of circled some things and underlined things as I was reading. I didn't stop mid-sentence in order to write down my thoughts. Now I'm going to go back and take a look at this. Why did I put the question mark? it says that it doesn't make a difference which way he goes. And I'm wondering, why doesn't it make a difference? Because if you're going somewhere, you need to go the right direction. So that's why I put the question mark. Something else I'm noticing in here is that the author has used the word silence twice. So I really need to think about why silence. Okay, why is this such a big deal? You know, it's dark, it's misty, that's also important. It's nighttime, it's November. Okay, so think back to that symbolism chart that I gave you and what the seasons represent. But also he's alone, which ties into that silence. Okay, so I'm thinking about all this as I'm annotating. Okay, so going on, he was alone in this world of 2053, so it's in the future. And when you first read that, you think, wow, he's the only person on the earth? But then it says, or as good as alone, which I can infer means there's other people. Other people who don't interact with him. Okay, so notice how I went through this. I read the passage first, I made a couple marks, I underlined some things, circled some things, but then I went back and I annotated it afterwards, which is forcing me to think about what I'm reading and comprehend it better instead of interrupting the reading. Okay, now let's go on to the next paragraph. Sometimes he would walk for hours and miles and return only at midnight to his house. And on his way, he would see the cottages and homes with their dark windows, and it was not unequal to walking through a graveyard where only the faintest glimmers of firefly light appeared in flickers behind the windows. Sudden gray phantoms seemed to manifest upon inner room walls, where a curtain was still undrawn against the night, or there were whisperings and murmurs when a window in a tomb-like building was still unopened. Whoa, okay. So instead of trying to underline and circle everything in that passage that I thought was important, I just started a line here and I continued to move it down as I was reading until I got to a point where I thought, okay, I can stop making this bracket. I'm not interrupting my flow of thought. Instead, now what I'm doing is I'm just reminding myself that this part's important and I need to go back to it. Okay, let's take a look at why it's important though. What would I actually write in the margins of something like this? Okay, we've got dark windows. It's not unequal. Okay, there's a nice use of a double negative there. It's not unequal to walking through a graveyard. All right, graveyards. What do we think of when we think of graveyards? Whatever it is you're thinking of, I want you to write that in the margin. Okay. Where only the faintest glimmers of firefly light appeared in flickers behind the windows. Okay, we're not talking about the graveyard anymore. Now, what he's talking about is that there's a flickering of light in the windows of these houses. So the houses are completely dark, except for a flickering of light behind one window. Think about when you've ever been out walking or driving at night and you've looked in the houses and it's all dark except for a flickering light. What's causing that flickering light? Write that in the margin. Okay, hopefully you came up with TV. Okay, but here he's using the simile of firefly light. Well, fireflies flicker light, TVs flicker light. That's their similarity. How are they different? Well, a firefly is part of nature. The TV is not. So we've got nature versus technology. Sudden gray phantoms, so now we're to ghosts and death again, seem to manifest upon inner room walls where a curtain was still undrawn against the night. Or there were whisperings and murmurs where a window in a tomb-like building was still open. So they've got windows open, the blinds and the drapes are open, but they're tomb-like. We've got gravestone, tomb-like, gray phantoms. What is the sense that Bradbury is really trying to give you here? Okay, so if you haven't already written this in the margin, you definitely should be writing death-like. All right. Tomorrow in class, you are going to be paired up with one other person and you are going to read and annotate the story together. so that you can be working on these annotation skills while I'm in the room and I can walk around and help you with it, but also so you can get feedback from your peers. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you all on Monday.